Okay, so the next thing I want to do is I want to add our heaven six from our different positions of our hands. So this again can be any of the siniwalli patterns. It doesn't matter which one you choose. But what we're going to do here is we're just going to take heaven six from let's start Sarada, and it's inward, backhand, backhand, inward, backhand, backhand. This is one of the most common drills we do. Then you're going to do it from the abierta position, and this is inward, backhand, and backhand, inward, backhand, and backhand. So you'll notice the first one I pull through, and then this one loops through, and this one snaps out and back. Pull through, loop through, snap it out and back. You can also pull this through here like so, and bring it back as this loops again. So here's an inward, a backhand, and a backhand. An inward, a backhand, and a backhand. You just make big motions here. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, and 6. That's usually just, I like using that as more of a warm-up. I tend to think that this motion here is going to be a little bit more applicable for you. Okay? So that would be abierta position. From the cruzada position, I can loop this inward and then backhand and backhand. Loop this inward, backhand and backhand. Now, I can use my backhands as sort of this reaching shot with my arm, so it's backhand and backhand. Or as I loop this inward, I can go backhand, backhand, and really torque my body into that. So I loop it inward, backhand, and backhand. Loop the inward, backhand, and backhand. Now, if you're taking notes, or if you're paying attention here, this is going to go to the walking drill. So, we're going to start walking drill. Hitting our inward strikes, our X, our high, low, high, and our high, low, high. That's the forehand driven. Now do backhand driven. Backhand, backhand, backhand X, backhand high, low, and high, and backhand high, low, and high. Then the next step of this would be to do heaven six. So now this is 1, 2, and 3, 1, 2, and 3 from the open position. So then we'll go high, low, high. So now this is inward, then backhand, and then backhand. And now keep it open, inward, and backhand, and backhand. And now we do all low. Inward, backhand, and backhand. Inward, backhand, and backhand. I'm going to leave it at that before I add the redondos and all that stuff to this. You can do that. But I just want to make sure I keep this relatively concise because we are essentially just combining drills that we've already done. So the same thing would apply from our Sarada positioning. So I have an inward, I have an inward, I have an X, I have an X, I have a high, low, high, I have a high, low, and a high. I have a backhand, a backhand, a backhand X, a backhand X, a backhand high, low, and high, and a backhand high, low, and a high. Now, from our Sarada position, you're already in a very simple heaven, standard, and earth position. So this part should be a cakewalk to you by now, right? So then we go to cruzada. Cruzada positioning, we'll start with the inward, start with our X, hit the X, hit the high, the low, and the high, hit the high, the low, and the high. Now I'll back up, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11, 12. Now I gotta get back to heaven six, so this is 1, 2, and 3. And now this one's 2, 2, and 3, 3, 2, and 3, 4, 2, and 3, 5, 2, and 3. So you get the idea, we're just incorporating drills. We're incorporating drills into another drill. So we're just making one big long string of drills to focus on coordination, to focus on balance, focus on your sort of cognitive ability and learning how to move, right? So all of these again, high, middle, and low variants, all of these again can be done on any of these positions. So just explore this a little bit. You don't have to sit here and think that this is gonna get you through a fight type thing, but the idea of knowing where your sticks are and knowing where your hands are and being able to use them effectively from either position will. So it's a good idea to just get familiar with other positions that you might not have practiced as much. So that's what I really wanted you guys to get a chance to work on while we're still kind of doing this semi-quarantine thing. Hopefully gym classes will start up here soon. We're thinking the first of the month. We'll see. We got to wait for the governor's order still, but we're doing what we can, and I hope you're still working hard at home. Thank you very much. So we left off in the previous video with our abierta, cerrada, or cruzada, or open, closed, and crossed arm positioning. We also covered some basics of striking. So we covered our X starting with the backhand, or our X starting with the forehand from either of the three positions. We then covered our high-low high starting with the forehand or starting with the backhand from either of the three positions. You could technically say, you have one position here, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, and 7 if you want to keep it going. But we're not trying to split hairs here. So basically what I wanted to try and do here is take a drill that I've covered in this video series already and sort of tie this together and give it to you as a drill. And we're just going to take the walking drill just like we've been covering in the past, but we're going to add different starting positions to it. So I'm going to start all the way back here, and we're going to start abierta or open. I'm going to start with the forehand, and it's going to go 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, and 9, 10, 11, and 12. Then the next thing I'm going to do is as I go backward, I'm going to hit everything with my backhands. So this is going to go 1, 2, backhand driven X, backhand driven X, and backhand driven high to low to high, backhand high, low, and high. So this is from our abierta position. So forehand, forehand, forehand X, forehand X, forehand high, low, and high. Then we'll go backhand, backhand, backhand X, backhand X, backhand high, low, and high, and backhand high, low, and high. So the same formula we'll use for our cerrada positioning. I'm going to start cerrada on the right, or on my right side, and I want to still go ahead and hit the forehand first. So here's a forehand, there's a forehand. Here's an X, forehand driven, X, forehand driven, X high, low, and high, and then high, low, and then high. Now I'm going to backhand drive, backhand, backhand, backhand X, and high, high, low, and high, and high, low, and high. So the sort of unique thing that cerrada position allows us to do is anytime you use the hand that's tucked, you do the backhand. Anytime you're using the hand that's open, you do the forehand. So this is essentially a variant of what we just did, and this is going to go 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11, and 12. So as you can see, every time that I hit with my right hand, it's starting from the open side or an inward. As I hit with my left, it's starting from the backhand side. Then it's an X, then it's a backhand X, then it's a high, low, high, and then it's a backhand high, low, and high. So you can do that on the cerrada side. You can also do that with your cruzadas. Next one is cruzada. So obviously I would be going on the left side as well, but for sake of this video and the timing, I want to make sure I just move ahead. So we have our cruzada position. I step forward, I hit an inward. Step forward and hit an inward. Step forward and hit the X. Step forward and hit the X. Step forward, hit a high, a low, and a high. Step forward and hit a high, low, and high. Step back and hit a backhand. Step back and hit a backhand. Backhand X, backhand X, backhand high, low, and high. Backhand high, low, and high. I can step forward and I can make this every time my right hand is going to do the inward. So this is an inward. That's a backhand. This is an X. This is a backhand X. This is a forehand high, low, and high. And this is a backhand high, low, and high. Then as I back up, I'm going to switch roles. So every time my right hand hits, it's a backhand. Every time my left hand hits, it's an inward. So there's 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11, and 12. So what we're doing here isn't anything new. The material is the same. We've covered our cob-cob motions, we've covered our X, and we've covered our high-low highs. Only thing I did was start you on a closed side or a cross hand position, a closed side, and also direct you to use a backhand first instead of an inward. It's fairly basic stuff. So what I want you to try and do is I want you to try and incorporate that into your training at home, because that's going to really help your cognitive ability and your coordination to be competent with whatever's coming at you. No matter which position you're in, you have a response. You can deal with it.